I want you to lean in because what I'm about to tell you is not for the faint of heart. It is for the weary, the broken, the tired souls who have given until they are hollow. This is for those who have been the rescuer, the listener, the one who shows up even when no one ever shows up for them. There is a moment in life when you will look in the mirror and realize the reflection staring back is a stranger you built from scraps you gave away. Your laughter has been borrowed, your kindness has been drained, and your worth has been handed out like loose change to people who never learned how to treasure it. But listen to me closely. There is no applause for self-sacrifice that leaves you in pieces. The world will take and take and take until you decide enough, until you decide that your own soul deserves the first sip from your cup. And when you choose yourself, truly choose yourself, the ground beneath your feet will shift. You will not walk the same, you will not love the same, and you will not ever beg to be seen again. Stay with me because in these next few moments, I will tell you why choosing yourself is not selfish, it is salvation. And if you can grasp that truth, nothing in this life will ever have the power to break you again. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when the noise of life fades just enough for you to hear it. A whisper, a truth you have spent years avoiding. It doesn't come with fireworks or a grand announcement. It arrives in the stillness of a sleepless night, in the pause between tears, in the weight of an exhale you didn't know you'd been holding. It is the moment you realize that for far too long you have been your own abandoner. It is not easy to face. You would rather point to the long list of people who let you down, the friend who disappeared when you needed them, the lover who promised forever but couldn't even stay for tomorrow, the family who called your dreams foolish or your pain exaggerated. You want to hold them accountable for the ache in your chest. And perhaps they do bear some blame, but when the truth comes, it does not let you hide behind blame. It holds your gaze and says, yes, they left you, but before they ever did, you left yourself. It is a startling realization. You remember all the times you said yes when your soul was screaming no. You recall how often you put your own needs last, not because you were noble, but because you were afraid. Afraid of losing love, afraid of being alone, afraid of being seen as selfish or cold. You thought if you kept giving, kept bending, kept erasing your own boundaries, someone would finally look at you and decide you were worth keeping. But now you see it. You see that you have been waiting for someone else to give you permission to matter. And in the waiting, you've been starving yourself of the very love you've been desperate to receive. You have been rationing your own joy. You have been treating your needs like luxuries instead of necessities. And while you were busy pouring into everyone else, your own well ran dry. The quiet realization doesn't arrive with pity. It doesn't pat your hand and say, poor thing. It is fierce. It looks you in the eye and says, you are not a victim of your generosity. You are a victim of your neglect. And in that moment, you understand that no one else can fix this for you. No one is coming to scoop you up from the floor, wrap you in a blanket, and say, you first, always. That job was yours from the beginning, and you've been handing it to everyone but yourself. You think back to all the little ways you abandoned yourself, the invitations you accepted even though your body begged for rest, the apologies you gave when you did nothing wrong, the dreams you shelved because they were inconvenient for someone else's comfort, the truth you swallowed so you could keep the peace. Each of these moments seemed small, harmless even, but together they built a life where you are a stranger in your own skin. And here's the hardest part. Some part of you knew. You felt the sting every time you betrayed yourself, but you brushed it aside. You told yourself it was love. You told yourself it was kindness. But it was something else entirely. It was fear dressed as generosity. It was self-abandonment dressed as devotion. The realization cuts deep because it forces you to confront a question you've avoided for years. Why do I believe everyone else's needs are more important than mine? It is not about arrogance or ego. It is about the simple, radical truth that your life is your own, and you have been living it as if it belonged to everyone else. In that stillness, memories flood in. You remember being a child when you learned that being good meant being quiet, agreeable, and easy to please. You remember the first time you dimmed your light so someone else wouldn't feel small. You remember the sting of rejection when you dared to put yourself first, and the lesson you took from it. It's safer to disappear into the background. And without even realizing it, you built your entire identity around not taking up too much space. But the quiet realization comes with a kind of mercy. It says, yes, you abandoned yourself, but you can choose differently now. It shows you that the person you've been searching for, the one you've been waiting on, has been here the whole time. You have been the one capable of giving yourself the love, the rest, the care, the respect you crave. And though it hurts to see the truth, it is also liberating. Because now you know, and once you know, you cannot unknow. From here, every choice becomes a mirror. Do you say yes to something that feels wrong in your bones? That's abandoning yourself? Do you stay quiet when your truth is pounding at your ribs? That's abandoning yourself. Do you keep people close who only show up when it benefits them? That's abandoning yourself. The quiet realization sharpens your vision so you can see these moments for what they are. Crossroads where you must decide who you will be. And slowly, without fanfare, you begin to shift. You start small, perhaps by declining an invitation without explaining why. You take a long bath and leave your phone in the other room. You speak a truth, even if your voice shakes. These moments feel strange at first. There is guilt, discomfort, even fear. But there is also a flicker of something else, pride. You begin to recognize yourself again. You notice how your body reacts when you honor your needs. The knot in your stomach loosens. Your shoulders drop from your ears. You breathe a little deeper. It's as if your entire being has been waiting for you to come home. And when you do, it welcomes you with a relief so profound it brings tears to your eyes. You realize that healing does not always start with grand gestures. Sometimes it starts with the quiet decision to stop abandoning yourself in the small, everyday ways. To feed yourself before you feed the world. To rest without earning it. To trust that your worth is not measured by how much of yourself you give away. And maybe, just maybe, you start to see the people in your life differently. You notice who respects the shift and who resists it. You see who celebrates your boundaries and who tries to break them. This is not about casting people as villains. It is about seeing clearly. And the clearer you see, the harder it becomes to live in the old ways. The quiet realization is not comfortable. It does not let you go back to sleep. It shakes you awake and demands that you take responsibility for how you've treated yourself. And while that responsibility is heavy, it is also the key. Because if you have been the one abandoning yourself, then you are also the one who can choose to stay. You are the one who can choose to put your name at the top of your own list. You are the one who can say, I matter here. You are the one who can decide right now that the love you've been waiting for will come from you first. And when you do, everything begins to change. Quietly at first, then all at once. There is a moment just as powerful as the first time you say, I love you, when you speak another set of words that will change your life forever. No, not the bitter, vengeful no born from resentment. Not the sharp, careless no meant to wound. I am talking about the sacred no, the one that rises from the quiet knowing deep in your chest, the no that is rooted in love for yourself, the no that says, I will not betray my peace to keep you comfortable, At first, it feels unnatural. For years, perhaps your entire life, you've been trained to believe that saying no is selfish, unkind, even cruel. You've been told to smile, nod, and accommodate. You've been told that good people always say yes. Yes to favors, yes to extra work, yes to bending yourself into shapes that please others. You've been told that your value is in your usefulness. But there comes a point when you realize that constantly saying yes has not made you more loved. It has made you more empty. Every yes you gave when your soul wanted to say no was a tiny cut. You didn't notice them at first, but over time, those cuts bled you dry. The sacred no is the moment you stop the bleeding. It is the moment you understand that boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates to protect what is precious. And you, your energy, your time, your heart are precious. The first sacred no will feel strange in your mouth, like a language you've never spoken before. You might hesitate, stumble, or try to wrap it in excuses. You might say, "I'm sorry, I can't," or maybe next time, as if your refusal needs to be justified. But the truth is, no is a complete sentence. It does not need decoration. It does not need apology. Still, the guilt comes, the fear that they will be angry, the dread that they will leave, the whisper in your mind that says, "Who are you to deny them?" But here's the deeper truth. Every time you say yes to something that goes against your own well-being, you are saying no to yourself. And if you are willing to betray yourself to avoid disappointing someone else, you are telling the world and your own soul that their comfort is worth more than your peace. The sacred no is a radical reversal of that pattern. It is the moment you say, "I choose me," not because you don't care about others, but because you finally understand that caring for yourself is the foundation from which true care for others can flow. And the beauty of the sacred no is that it is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as closing your laptop at the end of the workday, even when there are emails waiting. Sometimes it's declining an invitation to an event that you know will drain you. Sometimes it's telling a loved one, "I can't have this conversation right now," when the words coming toward you feel like arrows. Each sacred no is a seed. At first it looks small, maybe even insignificant, but over time it grows into something strong and unshakable in self-respect. The people who love you will adjust to your no. In fact, they may even admire it. The ones who don't, the ones who only valued you for your endless yes, will bristle, maybe even push back. This is not because your no is wrong, but because your no disrupts the unspoken contract they have been benefiting from. You were giving at the expense of yourself, and they were receiving without question. Your sacred no forces them to see the imbalance. You may lose people in this process. That's not a failure, it's a cleansing. Your no will act like a sieve, filtering out the relationships that cannot survive mutual respect. What remains are the ones that can hold your boundaries without punishment. And the truth is, your sacred no doesn't just protect you from others, it protects you from yourself. It guards against the part of you that still wants to overextend, to overgive, to overprove. That part of you will resist at first. It will whisper, "Just this once, just for them." But your no, once practiced, will rise up like a shield and say, "Not at the expense of my soul." The sacred no also changes the way you hear other people's boundaries. When you have learned to honor your own, you begin to honor theirs without resentment. You stop taking no as rejection and start taking it as a sign of self-respect. And in that way, your no becomes not just an act of self-love, but a model for others. You begin to notice something else. Your yes starts to mean more. When you are no longer saying yes out of obligation, every yes becomes a gift, given freely without the bitter aftertaste of resentment. People can feel the difference. A yes born from love and alignment carries a joy that no obligatory yes can match. The sacred no is not about shutting the world out. It is about deciding what and who gets to enter. It is about knowing that your time and energy are not infinite resources and treating them accordingly. It is about recognizing that you are not a renewable commodity for others to consume at will. You are a living, breathing soul with limits, and those limits deserve reverence. There will be moments when your no will be misunderstood, when people will call you selfish or distant. Let them. The people who misunderstand your no are often the ones who benefited from your inability to say it. They will adjust or they will leave. Either way, you are free. With time, the sacred no stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like peace. You no longer carry the weight of commitments you didn't want. You no longer dread the days you filled with obligations that drain you. You no longer wake up feeling like your life belongs to everyone but you. You realize that your no is not a barrier to connection. It is the very thing that makes authentic connection possible. Because you are no longer showing up as a hollowed-out version of yourself, pretending to be fine. You are showing up whole because you have learned that protecting your own well-being is not selfish. It is necessary. And so, the sacred no becomes your compass. It points you toward the life you are meant to live, one choice at a time. It reminds you that every time you say no to something that diminishes you, you are saying yes to something that will nourish you. And that is how the balance begins to return. There comes a day when you finally meet your own eyes. You've glanced in mirrors for years, rushing past them while brushing your teeth, straightening your shirt, fixing your hair, but you haven't really looked. You haven't dared to stop long enough to see the truth staring back at you. The mirror of truth is different from the glass that simply reflects your appearance. This mirror is deeper. It doesn't just show you the curve of your jaw or the shape of your smile. It shows you the weight in your shoulders, the tiredness in your eyes, the way you've been carrying a heaviness you don't speak of. It shows you the places where you've been pretending. When you finally look into this mirror, you cannot hide behind your carefully crafted mask. The one you've worn for years, the polite smile, the practiced calm, the agreeable nod, slips away. Here, there is no audience to impress, no role to perform. It's just you and the reflection you've been avoiding, and for a moment, it is uncomfortable. You want to look away. You want to reach for your phone, turn on the TV, distract yourself with anything that will keep you from having to face it. Because in this mirror, you see not only what you've become, but also all the ways you've abandoned the person you were meant to be. You see the weariness etched in the lines of your face. You see the smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes anymore. You see the light you used to carry, that spark that once danced when you laughed, dimmed to a faint glow. And perhaps the most painful part is this: you know exactly when it began to fade. The mirror of truth has no filter, no soft light to make things pretty. It is not here to flatter you. It is here to tell you the truth you've been avoiding. You are not living in alignment with your own soul. You remember the dreams you've shelved because someone told you they were impractical. You remember the conversations you didn't have because you feared confrontation. You remember the love you settled for because you didn't believe you deserved more. You remember the nights you lay awake knowing something was wrong but convincing yourself you could live with it. And as you stand there, face to face with yourself, you realize that you have been moving through life as if it were something to endure, not something to inhabit fully. You've been surviving, not living. You've been acting, not being. The mirror doesn't scold you. It doesn't shame you. It simply holds the truth steady until you are ready to see it. And when you finally do, there is a quiet kind of grief. You grieve for the version of yourself who believed they could be anything. You grieve for the innocence that was lost when you learned that the world doesn't always celebrate authenticity. You grieve for the joy you sacrificed in the name of keeping the peace. But grief, as heavy as it is, can be cleansing. It makes space, and in that space you begin to hear a voice, faint at first, then clearer. It says, I am still here. That's the gift of the mirror of truth. It doesn't just show you what you've lost, it shows you what remains. It reveals the resilience in your gaze, the stubborn flicker of light that refuses to go out. It reminds you that beneath the layers of compromise and fear, your true self is still waiting. You notice small things, the way your eyes brighten when you think about something that matters to you, the way your jaw softens when you imagine a life where you are not always on guard. These glimpses are not illusions, they are invitations. But to accept the invitation, you must be willing to tell yourself the truth, not the half-truths you've been repeating. I'm fine, it's not that bad, I can handle it. The real truth, the truth about what hurts, the truth about what you want, the truth about what you've been avoiding. It takes courage to speak these truths, even to yourself, because once you do, you can no longer pretend not to know. And knowing means you must choose. Will you continue to live in the comfort of denial, or will you step into the discomfort of change? The mirror of truth will not choose for you. It will simply keep showing you what is real, and perhaps that is the most loving thing it can do, to hold up your reflection until you remember that you are worth coming back to. You begin to ask yourself new questions, not what do they want from me, but what do I want for myself? Not how do I keep the peace, but what would bring me peace? Not how do I fit in, but where do I belong? And as you ask, you begin to notice the cost of all the pretending, the tension in your body, the exhaustion in your spirit, the way your days have been stitched together with obligations instead of desires. You see how much energy it takes to live a life that isn't yours. In the mirror, you see the truth of your boundaries, the ones you've crossed, the ones you've ignored, the ones you've never even set. You see the truth of your relationships, which ones nourish you, which ones drain you, which ones you cling to out of habit rather than love. You see the truth of your choices, how often you have chosen what is safe over what is true. And yet, this is not a moment for self-punishment. The mirror of truth is not here to condemn you. It is here to awaken you. It is here to remind you that you cannot change what you will not face. You realize that loving yourself enough to heal begins with this, with looking without flinching, with saying, yes, this is where I am, not where you wish you were, not where someone else told you to be, but here, in this exact moment. There is power in that honesty, because when you stop lying to yourself, you stop living in illusions, and when the illusions fall away, you are left with something real, something you can actually work with. You may not know how to fix everything yet. You may not know what the next step looks like, but you know this: you will not go back to pretending. You will not look into this mirror and tell yourself the same old lies. You will keep looking until you see clearly. And the more you look, the more you begin to see not just what is wrong, but what is possible. You see the version of yourself who lives without apology. You see the version of yourself who speaks with conviction, who rests without guilt, who loves without losing themselves. You see the version of yourself who remembers they are enough. This is the beginning of the return. It starts here, in the stillness, in the unflinching gaze. It starts when you decide that the truth is not your enemy, but your guide. And though it may be uncomfortable, it is also freeing, because the truth, once faced, has the power to set you free. There comes a time when the most loving thing you can do for yourself is stand up and walk away. It doesn't matter if the table you've been sitting at is beautiful, if the plates are fine china, if the candles glow softly, or if the room is filled with familiar faces. What matters is this: the table does not feed you anymore. For a long time, you told yourself to stay. You told yourself that maybe, if you waited long enough, they would notice your empty plate. Maybe they would see your hunger. Maybe they would remember that you too deserve to be served, to be heard, to be loved without condition. You stayed because you believed the story that loyalty means never leaving, even when your soul is starving. But here's the truth you finally learn. Loyalty to a place that harms you is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment dressed in devotion's clothing. And when you stay at a table where love is conditional, where respect is rationed, where kindness is handed out like rewards for obedience, you slowly begin to disappear. You can feel it happening. Your laughter becomes quieter. Your thoughts stay locked inside because you've learned they will be dismissed or twisted. Your dreams shrink to fit the small space you've been given. You learn to read the room before you speak, always calculating how to keep the peace. And in the process, you forget that peace is not the same thing as silence. Leaving the table is not easy. There are ties, history, memories, the comfort of the known. You've shared bread here. You've told stories here. You've given pieces of yourself to the people sitting beside you. To leave feels like betrayal. But in truth, the greater betrayal is staying in a place that demands you betray yourself. The decision begins quietly, like a soft pulse in your chest. It happens the moment you realize that no matter how much you give, you will never be full here. It happens the moment you see that love, when it is real, does not require you to become less in order to receive more. It happens the moment you notice that the only thing keeping you in your seat is the fear of what will happen if you stand. Fear is a powerful jailer. It whispers, what if there's no other table? What if you are alone forever? What if this is the best you'll ever get? But there is another voice, quieter but stronger, that says there is more than this. There must be more than this. And so you begin to imagine what it might be like to leave. Not in anger, not in drama, but in dignity. You picture yourself standing, pushing your chair back, and walking toward the door without looking back. You feel the weight lift from your shoulders as you realize you no longer have to earn your seat. The first steps are the hardest. You expect the room to call you back, to accuse you, to shame you for daring to choose yourself, and maybe they do. Maybe voices rise and hands reach, not to hold you in love, but to hold you in place. They may call you ungrateful. They may tell you you're overreacting. They may remind you of all they've done for you. This is their way of keeping you small. But by the time you've decided to leave, you've already faced the truth. Staying costs more than leaving ever could, because when you stay, you keep teaching them that your needs are negotiable, your worth is optional, and your boundaries are flexible, and you've had enough of teaching that lesson. Leaving the table doesn't mean you hate the people who sit there. It means you love yourself enough to find a place where you can eat without begging, where your presence is valued without condition. It means you are done playing the role of the grateful guest who should be happy with whatever scraps are given. It means you are ready to become the host of your own life. And here's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes the table you're leaving isn't set by others at all. Sometimes it's a table you built yourself out of old beliefs, inherited fears, outdated versions of who you thought you should be. Sometimes you are both the host and the prisoner. Leaving that table means dismantling the one you've been sitting at in your own mind. It means questioning every rule you've lived by, every voice that told you you couldn't want more. When you walk away, there is an ache. You miss the familiarity, even if it was unhealthy. You miss the patterns, even if they were destructive. You miss the feeling of belonging, even if it came at the cost of your truth. But over time, the ache shifts. It becomes space. And in that space, new tables appear. Some of them will be small, just you, a cup of tea, and the quiet joy of your own company. Others will be surrounded by people who see you, hear you, and celebrate you. These tables are different. Here, you do not have to earn your place. You do not have to shrink to fit. You can laugh loudly, speak freely, and dream wildly. And here's what's even more powerful. When you learn to leave the wrong table, you stop being afraid of leaving altogether. You stop settling for places where you are tolerated instead of treasured. You stop believing that love must be fought for. You stop chasing crumbs when you are capable of baking your own bread. The day you leave is the day you reclaim your hunger. You no longer wait for someone else to feed you. You no longer sit quietly with an empty plate while telling yourself it's enough to be invited. You recognize that being at a table where you are starving is lonelier than standing outside in the open air, trusting that somewhere there is a feast with your name on it. You do not have to stay where your soul is starving. You do not have to keep breaking yourself into smaller and smaller pieces so that others can feel whole. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to need more. You are allowed to walk away from anything that asks you to become less in order to receive it. And when you finally do, you realize that leaving the table was never about loss. It was about liberation. There comes a time in your life when you realize no one else is coming to hold you together. No one else is coming to gather the scattered pieces of your soul and fit them neatly back into place. No one else is going to show up at your door with all the answers, all the healing, all the love you've been waiting for. And in that moment, you understand you are going to have to rebuild your own hands. Your hands have done so much for others. They have cooked meals, wiped tears, carried burdens, signed papers, and worked tirelessly for dreams that weren't even your own. They have been extended in comfort, in service, in generosity, always reaching outward, always giving, always holding someone else steady. But somewhere along the way, they forgot how to hold you. You didn't notice at first. You were too busy doing what you thought was right, too busy proving your worth through usefulness. You believed that if your hands stayed busy enough, no one would notice the tremble in them, the way they ached at night from carrying too much for too long. And then one day, they simply felt empty. Not because they weren't touching anyone else, but because they had forgotten what it felt like to touch your own life with care. Rebuilding your hands means reclaiming that ability. It means learning to reach for yourself first, not out of selfishness, but out of the deep knowing that you cannot pour from hands that are cracked and bleeding. It means becoming your own healer, your own comforter, your own anchor. At first, this feels strange. Your instinct will be to reach outward, to find someone else to soothe the ache. But you begin to understand that every time you hand your healing over to someone else, you teach your soul to wait instead of act. You teach yourself to believe that salvation is something that arrives from the outside, when in truth, it begins from within. Rebuilding your hands is not about rejecting the help of others. It's about learning that you are not powerless without it. It's about knowing that if no one else shows up, you can still carry yourself through the storm. So you start small. You start by placing your own hand over your heart when the anxiety rises, whispering to yourself, "We're okay. We've got this." You start by writing down your own thoughts instead of letting them swirl unspoken in your head. You start by cooking a meal just for you, not because anyone else will eat it, but because you deserve the care and attention it takes to make something nourishing. Slowly, your hands begin to remember. They remember how to hold your own face in the mirror and say, "You are enough." They remember how to plant seeds, literal or metaphorical, and tend to them with patience. They remember how to clap for your own victories, even if no one else is watching. There is power in this kind of rebuilding, because when your hands learn to hold you, you stop grasping so desperately for others to do it. You stop clinging to relationships that drain you just because they offer moments of comfort. You stop bargaining for scraps of affection because your own hands have learned to give you the feast you deserve. And here's the truth. When you rebuild your own hands, you are not just repairing damage. You are creating something stronger than before. You are not going back to the fragile hands that once dropped yourself for the sake of others. You are shaping hands that can carry both your own weight and the dreams you've been too afraid to pick up again. There will be days when you doubt your strength, days when your hands shake, when you feel like dropping it all, when you wish someone would just swoop in and save you. On those days, you'll be tempted to think you haven't rebuilt anything at all. But then you'll notice, even in the shaking, your hands are still holding on. The rebuilding process also means learning what not to carry. You begin to see the burdens you've been holding that were never yours to begin with. Expectations passed down from family, guilt handed to you by people who couldn't carry their own, responsibilities you picked up because you thought it made you a good person. Slowly, you begin to set them down, one by one, and as your hands empty, they have space for something new, for joy, for creativity, for rest. You begin to create not out of obligation, but out of delight. You pick up the paintbrush, the pen, the instrument, the hobby you abandoned when life got heavy. You build not because you have to, but because you want to. Rebuilding your own hands is an act of trust. You trust that you can take care of yourself, that you can soothe your own pain, that you can stand on your own even when the world feels unsteady. And in that trust, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You begin to see yourself as capable. It doesn't mean you'll never need anyone. We are human. We are wired for connection. But it means you'll no longer see others as the source of your survival. You'll see them as companions on a journey you are already equipped to walk. One day, you'll find yourself in a moment of crisis, the kind of moment that would have broken you before. You'll feel the old panic rise, the urge to reach for someone, anyone, to hold you up. But then you'll notice your own hands, steady, ready, waiting, and without even thinking, you'll hold yourself steady. You'll breathe, you'll get through it, and you'll realize, this is what I built them for. You didn't rebuild your hands to prove a point. You rebuilt them because you were tired of living with your palms open, waiting for someone else to fill them. You rebuilt them because you wanted to live with your palms full of your own strength, your own peace, your own self-respect. And once you've rebuilt them, you'll carry yourself differently. You'll carry your life differently, not like something fragile that could shatter at any moment, but like something worthy of care, worthy of protection, worthy of love, starting with your own. Because these hands, your hands, have learned the most important truth of all. You are not helpless here. You never were. Love is one of the most beautiful things you will ever give and receive, but it is also one of the easiest places to lose yourself. You begin with the purest intentions, offering your time, your heart, your energy. You bend a little to make space for someone else, and then you bend a little more. At first, it feels like compromise, like devotion, but slowly, without realizing it, you start disappearing in the name of keeping the love alive. One day, you look in the mirror and barely recognize yourself. The dreams you used to have are gathering dust in the corner. Your voice feels quieter, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have trained yourself to avoid waves. Your boundaries, once clear, are now blurry lines that no one notices have been crossed, not even you. Loving without losing means learning how to keep your soul intact while giving your heart away. It's understanding that love is not about erasing yourself to fit someone else's shape. It's about standing whole and letting them stand whole too. The problem is, many of us were taught that love is proven through sacrifice, that the more we give up for someone, the more it shows we care. We were told that bending until we break is romantic, that swallowing our needs makes us noble. But this is not love. This is quiet self-abandonment. And when you abandon yourself long enough, resentment will take root where love once bloomed. True love, the kind that lasts, cannot thrive on one person shrinking so the other can shine. Real love is two lights burning beside each other, not one light dimming to let the other glow. Loving without losing requires boundaries that are not walls, but doors. Doors that allow connection while protecting the space you need to remain yourself. It starts with knowing what you need to feel whole. Maybe it's time alone. Maybe it's creative space. Maybe it's financial independence, spiritual practice, or the freedom to chase certain goals. Whatever it is, it's not selfish. It's essential. If you don't protect these things, you will eventually find yourself living in someone else's life instead of your own. And protecting them is not an act of defiance against love. It is an act of service to it. When you care for yourself, you bring the best of you to the relationship. You show up not from a place of depletion, but from abundance. You can give freely because you are not giving from your last drop. But loving without losing also means having the courage to speak up when something feels off. It means saying, I need this without guilt, and I can't do this without shame. It means trusting that if the love is real, it can handle honesty. If the only way the relationship survives is by silencing yourself, then it is not surviving. It is pretending. You will meet people who will make you feel like keeping yourself intact is selfish. You will meet people who only feel safe when you are small. But shrinking to make someone comfortable is the slowest kind of heartbreak. Every time you fold yourself into a smaller version, you send a message to your soul that your needs don't matter, and eventually your soul will stop trying to speak up at all. The beautiful thing is, when you learn to love without losing yourself, the relationships that remain will be stronger. They will be built on truth, not illusion. You will attract people who love you not for how well you serve them, but for how fully you stand as yourself. And you will learn to offer the same in return, to love others without asking them to disappear for you. You will learn to make space for their dreams, their needs, their quirks, even when they don't align perfectly with yours. You will love them without trying to make them a mirror of you. This kind of love is not always as dramatic or storybook perfect as the movies. It may not have the sweeping gestures of sacrifice or the grand declarations of, I'd give up everything for you, but it has something far rarer, stability. It has two people who can grow together without one having to stop growing entirely. Loving without losing yourself will mean letting go of the idea that love should hurt, that it should cost you everything, that it is measured by how much you can endure. It will mean letting go of relationships that demand your silence, your smallness, your surrender of identity. And yes, that will be painful, but it will be the kind of pain that heals rather than the kind that rots you from the inside out. Because the truth is, when you protect your wholeness, you make room for a deeper kind of love. One that is not born out of need, but out of choice. You are not with someone because you can't live without them. You are with them because you can live fully with them. And that, more than anything, is the kind of love that lasts. There comes a moment after the breaking and the rebuilding when you no longer see the world the same way. The familiar streets you've walked for years seem somehow brighter, as if the light has been adjusted. Faces you've known forever carry details you never noticed. The soft creases around a smile, the quiet exhaustion behind certain eyes. It's not that the world has changed, it's that you have. You are looking at it through new eyes. These eyes are not the same ones you used when you were lost in pleasing others, or when you were chasing approval, or when you were carrying pain you didn't know how to put down. Those eyes filtered life through survival, through fear, through the desperate need to belong. These new eyes see without that fog. When you choose yourself, when you learn to protect your peace, when you let go of what was never meant to hold you, something shifts deep inside. Your vision clears. What once seemed impossible now feels like a challenge you can meet. What once seemed beautiful but out of reach now feels like something you deserve to touch. And the people who once made you doubt your worth, you see them differently now. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. You see where they are on their journey, and you no longer mistake their limits for your own. The birth of new eyes is not an overnight transformation. It begins quietly, almost unnoticeably. One day, you catch yourself laughing without feeling the weight on your chest. Another day, you stand up for yourself and realize your voice doesn't shake the way it used to. You start to notice moments of joy, not because they are grand or dramatic, but because they are pure. Sipping tea in the morning, feeling sunlight on your face, hearing your own footsteps on a quiet street. With new eyes, even pain looks different. You no longer see it as an enemy, but as a teacher. You recognize the lessons it carried into your life, the boundaries it taught you to set, the strength it pulled out of you, the lies it forced you to stop believing. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what did this give me? That shift alone changes everything. New eyes also mean you can spot love in places you used to overlook. Not just romantic love, but the kind that shows up in a friend who remembers how you take your coffee, or in a stranger who holds the door a little longer than necessary, or in the way a song seems to find you exactly when you need it. These are the things you used to be too tired, too distracted, or too hurt to notice. And perhaps most importantly, these eyes see you. Not the version of you that's been edited to fit into someone else's frame, but the real, unfiltered you. The one who has endured loss and still wakes up every morning. The one who has been told you can't and still tried. The one who has made mistakes, learned, and dared to love again anyway. With new eyes, you start recognizing the quiet power you carry. You stop waiting for permission to be happy. You stop bargaining with your worth. You stop giving your best to people who only offer you their bare minimum. This shift doesn't make life perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never feel hurt or doubt again. But it means you approach those moments differently. You don't crumble the way you once did. You don't stay down as long. You remember that storms don't last forever, and you've already survived worse. That knowledge sits in your chest like a steady heartbeat, reminding you that you are built of something unshakable. And because your eyes are new, you look ahead differently too. The future no longer feels like a place you're stumbling toward blindly. It feels like a landscape you can paint with your own colors. You begin to dream again, but this time, your dreams are not about proving yourself. They are about expressing yourself, not about impressing others, but about living in a way that feels true. You start to understand that healing wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about returning to yourself, then learning to see that self clearly. The birth of new eyes is the reward for all the nights you thought you wouldn't make it, for all the days you forced yourself to take just one more step. And now, when you meet someone else who is lost in the fog you once lived in, you see them differently too. You recognize the way they keep their head down, the way they hide their feelings, the way they settle for less because they've forgotten they deserve more. You see them not with pity, but with the same compassion you had to learn to give yourself. You know that one day they might be standing where you are, looking at the world with eyes they didn't know they could grow. The birth of new eyes is a quiet revolution. It changes how you see the world, but even more than that, it changes how you see yourself in it. And once you've seen through these eyes, you can never go back to the old ones. You are not here to be a shadow in someone else's story. You are not here to be half loved, half heard, half seen. Your life will not wait for you to be chosen. Healing begins the moment you turn inward and say, I choose me, even if no one else ever does. And when you make that choice, your heart will unclench. Your soul will exhale. And the pieces of you that once felt scattered will finally come home. Because the truth is simple. The person you've been waiting for has been here all along.